Today, Trump's former U.S. Attorney General is calling Trump's claims of a witch hunt ridiculous. Bill Barr says the indictment is very damning and described the government's case against Trump as solid.
And this idea of presenting Trump as a victim here, a victim of a witch hunt, is ridiculous. Yes, he's been a victim in the past. Yes, his adversaries have obsessively pursued him with phony claims, and I've been at his side defending against them when he is a victim. But this is much different. He's not a victim here. He was totally wrong that he had the right to have those documents. Those documents are among the most sensitive secrets that the country has. They have to be in the custody of the archivist. He had no right to maintain them and retain them. And he kept them in a way at Mar-a-Lago that anyone who really cares about national security, their stomach would churn at it.
So, Caitlin, bring us more about what Bill Barr, the former Attorney General for the former President Trump, had to say.
Well, Fred, this has really been an extraordinary reaction from the former Attorney General Bill Barr and really across the legal community to the level of detail that is in this indictment of Donald Trump. 31 counts of individual documents that Donald Trump is accused of retaining at Mar-a-Lago where he shouldn't have had them, says the Justice Department, and that there are photos of these sorts of documents kept in a bathroom with a chandelier in it, in a storage closet where they're spilled over the floor. That is the level of detail that has caused a really, really widespread reaction of how serious this case is as a national security case and how serious the risk was for Donald Trump to have these boxes of documents after the presidency. Here's a little bit more from Bill Barr on Fox News on Sunday.
Here, I think the government acted responsibly. They gave him every opportunity to return those documents. They acted with restraint. They were very deferential to him, and they were very patient. They talked to him for almost a year to try to get those documents, and he jerked them around. They finally went to a subpoena, and what did he do? According to the government, he lied and obstructed that subpoena. And then they did a search, and they found a lot more documents. And they're not even, I don't think they're even sure now whether they have everything. So they acted in a very patient way, and what they were met with was, according to the government and the indictment, very egregious obstruction.
Now, Fred, contrast that with Bill Barr previously when he was Attorney General and even after he left the Trump administration, believing that Donald Trump should not have had a special counsel previously investigating him and his 2016 campaign, that was not an investigation that the FBI should have been embarking on at that time. A very different tune from Donald Trump's own Attorney General, someone very, very linked to his administration. And so now, Fred, we're going to be waiting for the next 2 days. About 48 hours from now is when Trump will be arriving to the federal courthouse here to have his arraignment, his initial appearance, to tell the court he is not guilty to these charges. And that will be kicking off quite a process in the federal system where the court will be moving towards a trial to have a jury look at the evidence that the Justice Department has gathered here and decide if they believe that the former president of the United States is guilty of these crimes he's charged with. Fred?
Yeah, a highly anticipated, unprecedented day on Tuesday. They're scheduled in Miami. Caitlin Polantz, thank you so much. All right, Ron Brownstein back with us now. All right, adding to how extraordinary it is to hear from Bill Barr, the former U.S. Attorney General, that he brought his sentiments to Fox News. I mean, that is quite striking as well. You know, flip side to that, you know, among some of Trump's allies on Capitol Hill, this is how they are rallying around the former president in this way. Listen.
He says point blank on tape, as president, I could have declassified it. Now I can't. He says in his own words, it's on tape as part of this indictment that he did not declassify the material. Therefore, it is classified.
Saying he could have. Saying he could have is not the same as saying he didn't.
He said now I can't.
He has declassified this material. He said that Now he can't, right, because he's not president now, but when he was president, he did declassify. He said that.
President Trump will have his day in court, but espionage charges are absolutely ridiculous. Whether you like Trump or not, he did not commit espionage. He did not disseminate, leak, or provide information to a foreign power or to a news organization to damage this country. He is not a spy. He's overcharged. Did he do things wrong? Yes, he may have.
On the IP.
So, Ron, you know, those comments either ignore or try to explain away what's in the indictment, a 49-page indictment. And these are some of Trump's elected loyalists. Are they doing this because they believe their arguments, or they just want to make sure that they keep Trump supporters, voters, in their corners?
You know, it's probably some combination of both. I mean, you don't hear as many people trying to defend the underlying comment. The most common argument from Republicans has been basically to delegitimize the entire investigation as inherently political or inherently weaponized, the same way they reacted to the indictment in New York, to the civil verdict against him on a sexual abuse trial. I mean, the basic argument is that there is a conspiracy so vast, as Joe McCarthy might have said, in kind of all of these different institutions to produce all of these unfounded allegations against Donald Trump. And they are both cementing and reflecting the dominant view inside the Republican coalition. But as I said, outside of the Republican coalition, not surprisingly, Fred, multiple criminal indictments is not a way to broaden your support. And I think there's evidence of that in polling both before and after this indictment. But the Republicans who believe this is a problem, either because it shows behavior that should not get into the Oval Office again, or even on a more crass political grounds that it does not suggest he would be a strong general election nominee, by and large, they are once again biting their tongue and allowing the Trump defenders to drive the dialogue in red America.
All right. And then there are some Republicans who are not biting their tongue, who are criticizing the president outright for his handling of these classified documents. And this is what they said, some of them today.
They have to come out and acknowledge this is different, this is serious. If even half of this stuff is true, he's in real trouble, and it is self-inflicted. And I just see too many of the candidates trying to walk around it. We'll see what happens. To your point, you have to be clear and transparent. You're running against this guy. He's whooping you by 40 points. Everybody needs to come out in concert. So it's not just a Chris Christie hitting Donald Trump or this candidate hitting Donald Trump. It is a party message. That's very, very important, because Donald Trump doesn't represent the Republican Party. He only represents himself.
This is bad for our country, bad for the presidency, and it is a legitimate campaign issue. We do not need to have our commander-in-chief of this country not protecting our nation's secrets. Think about when you talk about the equal application of the law. If these allegations and probable cause have been found against any military person or any public servant that wasn't named Donald Trump, they would have been indicted a long time ago.
All right, so Nunu's not running, Hutchinson is. Right. So how effectively does this give Republican challengers kind of a restart on distinguishing themselves?
Well, we're going to have to see what they do with it. As I said, I mean, there are two different arguments here that are both potentially have an audience, even in a Republican coalition. One, as Asa Hutchinson said, this is not behavior that you would expect in a president. This is a kind of a reckless attitude that calls into question the fitness of somebody to be president again. And in fact, Mike Pence, said last week in his announcement that Donald Trump and his attitude toward the Constitution, what he tried to do after the election in 2020, should not be president again. But Pence would not go the next step and say that he wouldn't support him if he was the Republican nominee in 2024, which was kind of head spinning. But there's,
because
as I
he
said,
wants the votes potentially.
Yeah, right. I mean, and then there's even a more kind of utilitarian argument for Republicans that not surprisingly, if you look at polling, voters outside of the Republican coalition are in fact disturbed by the kind of behavior that we have seen from Trump since Election Day in November 2020, from January 6th to these various indictments against him, to the civil judgment against him on sexual abuse. And you can raise the question of whether he is, an effective nominee. But Republicans feel enormous pressure to fall into line behind him. They are stitching their own straitjacket. by refusing to even discuss the underlying potential validity of the facts laid out in the indictment and preemptively dismissing it as a weaponized, kind of a political witch hunt. It's a very difficult. Governor Sununu is right about one point. Donald Trump is way ahead in this race. Most Republican voters believe he won in 2020. Most Republican voters were satisfied with his presidency. You're going to have to give them a good reason to move beyond him. He is providing plenty of ammunition to those other candidates. The question is whether they have kind of the nerve to use it.